Hey there, welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for the week of June 12th. The theme this week is Tomorrow's Dreams Are Built Today. My name is Shauna McGrath. I'm an astrologer and I'm excited to share with you the astrology of this week and then 3 tips for you to harness the energy for this week. So the first aspect that I'll talk about is the one that we'll be feeling most emotionally. This is the last quarter moon in the sign of Pisces. And this is happening early Saturday morning. So this you may be feeling more Friday, Saturday. The last quarter phase of the moon is the week in between the full moon and the new moon. So the moon is waning, the moon is becoming smaller and smaller in the sky, and there's really just this slice that's left. And it's the time before the next new moon. So it's at the very end of the cycle. And traditionally this period is called crisis of consciousness. And I know that sounds a little bit scary, but it's not. So the last quarter phase of the moon is referred to often as a crisis in consciousness because it's this time when we've done all of this work. We're towards the end of the lunar cycle. And so the moon, it rules over your emotions and how you feel about things. So the last quarter is this time when we've done something, whether that's this month or something that we've been working on all year. And there's kind of like this moment of, oh my gosh, like what am I doing with this? And that can be because it's coming to a close, or that can just be because you're reevaluating things. And this typically has a feeling of there's something that you need to get closure on during this time. Another layer of this is that it's in the sign of Pisces, and Pisces is the sign of the mystic, intuition, spiritual things and dream work and fantasy and illusion and delusion. And so the last quarter phase of the moon, it is a more internal time. It's a time when you may find yourself really thinking about things. You may find yourself wanting to resolve certain things, and not necessarily in an outward kind of way. You may just need to like make peace with things. And this is in a Piscean kind of way. So the more that you can embrace that energy, the more that you can allow it to be reflective and do that in a way that it's through meditation or dream work or just letting yourself kind of like putter around and muse on things. That's going to be helpful. The one note with this too is that last quarter phase of the moon in Pisces, it can have a more somber mood. It can have a more serious tone to it. So I'll have some, I want to share some tips with you at the end of this video, how to move through that in a way that feels good so that you don't get stuck in that somber kind of tone. So that is the moon. The second aspect that I'll speak about is we have the Sun and Mercury opposing Saturn. And so this is the Sun, which is your energy, your creative energy, what it is that you have to give, with Mercury, your mind, opposing Saturn. And Saturn is the planet that's about responsibility, and it's about devotion and long-term goals. So this is about meeting challenge. This is about wanting to do something and having something to bring to the world. And then there is either like a restriction or something that it is that you need to do, or like something that you need to engage with. There's like some kind of, it could be a restriction or it might just be a challenge. But whatever it is, the main theme with this whole week and this aspect is that whatever it is that you want, you can't get it right away. I'm sorry to say. So the benefit of this though is that even though Saturn does create a restriction and sometimes it can have this feeling of making things take a really long time, it also creates a lot of strength. And Saturn creates a very strong foundation. So I encourage you to keep that in mind, that whatever it is that you're working on, if you are meeting a challenge this week, that's actually good, because that means that it's going to become stronger through the help of you engaging with it and doing what it is that you need to do and taking one step at a time towards this long-term goal. Like, this is the whole theme of this week, is that tomorrow's dreams are built today. So what are you doing today to move yourself towards what it is that you want? And then the last aspect that I'll speak about is we have Neptune stationing retrograde. So full disclosure, this is not a super big deal, so don't freak out, okay? This is not like Mercury retrograde. This is very, very different, but it's still worth noting. So Neptune is the planet that rules over your spiritual connection. It's the way that your intuition functions for you, and we can see that in your birth chart based on where Neptune is. And it's also just like this this element of like creative awareness too, and how things come through you in a way where you just get like this spontaneous idea and you don't know where it comes from. It also rules over dreams and fantasy as well. And so Neptune, it's retrograde about half of the year. So it'll go retrograde for about 5 months, and then it'll go direct, and then retrograde. And so I liken this to like if you're watching a snail move. Like, if it changes direction, you're not going to notice very much right away. So the biggest thing for this is with Neptune going retrograde, it's just going to be internalized. And again, it's more subtle. So if you have a heavy Neptunian influence in your chart, you will notice this more. Or if you have Neptune transiting anything in your personal chart, you'll notice it more. But for all of us, it's a time when you can connect more to your spiritual nature. And so this is highlighted this week because it's this pinpoint, or not pinpoint, it's this shift point where Neptune is moving forward and then changing direction. So over the next 5 months, you'll have an opportunity to connect with your spiritual spidey senses. So this means anything from using dream work, or maybe you get more into your yoga practice or meditation, or even start working with like tarot or any kind of like divination cards or tools or anything like that. That can be really, there's a lot of support there to explore those things more. So I'll leave that there for you to decide what you want to do with it. But again, it's not something to freak out about. It's not something that's going to disrupt your life, but you can use it to connect with yourself more. So tips for you for this week. Tip number 1 is to look for the good. And this is actually something that my grandma says all the time, and it's so cute and sweet. And ironically, she's a Pisces. But I chose this specifically because we have the last quarter phase of the moon in the sign of Pisces. And so, and Saturn. So like these energies, they can be very spiritual, but they can also bring, again, like a more somber tone. And so what I don't want for you is I don't want for you to get stuck in this downward spiral that sometimes Pisces energy and Neptunian energy and even Saturn can reflect. And so I want you to look for the good. I want you to keep in mind all the blessings that you have in your life. And so if you meet a challenge this week, or something feels like it's not working and it's frustrating, shift your perspective to where the good is. And if you've been watching my videos, you know that I'm typically not like a think positive and all your problems will go away. Like, that's not my typical motto, but I think this week it can be really helpful to look for the good and to keep yourself moving forward, especially because we're at the end of this lunar cycle and the energy is more internal and reflective. And I want that internal and reflective energy to be useful. That's what this is really about. So tip number 2 is to take small steps towards your goals. So this is that Sun and Mercury opposing Saturn element. When Saturn is around, we benefit whenever we take steps towards what we want, and especially when we break things down into small little steps. And so I would, even like at the beginning of this week, I would pick one thing maybe that's been a challenge for you or a struggle, or where you are meeting some resistance, because you may already feel it present in your life, and especially people that are having Saturn transits, whether that's a Saturn return or Saturn aspecting other planets in your personal birth chart, you're going to be feeling this already. And so I would even at the beginning of the week decide what little actions, what little baby steps, maybe there's like 5 baby steps that you can take this week towards what it is that you want in the long term. So that's tip number 2, to take small steps towards your goals this week. Tip number 3 is to go to your spiritual rituals. And I don't know, you might not have any, you might have a ton, you might have some that you've forgotten, but this brings in that Neptunian kind of element, and it's also really great for the other aspects as well, for the Pisces and the Saturn. So I want you to remember the spiritual practices, the spiritual rituals that you have for yourself, and these do not need to be fancy. They don't need to look like anyone else's spiritual thing. It doesn't need to be something that you found from Yoga Journal or whatever. It can be just as simple as having your coffee and like really spending that quiet time with yourself. Like maybe you get up early before everyone else does and you get to enjoy the coffee all by yourself, or anything like that. Or you have like a special tea that you drink before you go to sleep. Can you tell I like coffee and tea? So whatever rituals that you have for yourself, go to those this week. Those will be a comfort for you. And I would even say, explore those over the next few months with Neptune being retrograde as well. So that's tip number 3, to go to your spiritual rituals this week. So that's your horoscope for the week. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please share it with a friend. I love getting these messages out to as many people as possible. And if you would like a personal reading, you can book that with me on my website, neofeminineastrology.com. And then if you want to listen to me talk more and you want to go deeper into the transits for this week, you can listen to the podcast that I'm co-hosting with my Astro Lady friend Mel with Energetic Principles. And so I'll have a link to both of those below. The podcast is available on iTunes as well. It is The Feminine Principle, Astrology for Authentic Living. So I'm wishing you an amazing week and sending lots of love. I will talk to you soon. Namaste.